Discovering a hidden Apache girl, a lonely rancher's heartwarming journey of forgiveness and change. The sun hung heavy over the wide-open landscapes of rural Arizona, a stark reminder of the heat that pressed down on Jack Thompson's heart. The loss of his wife had carved a barren canyon in his soul, leaving shadows where laughter once danced. At 45, Jack felt the weight of his once thriving ranch like a leaden anchor, dragging him deeper into despair. Each day was a struggle, a relentless battle against an emptiness that gnawed at him. The vibrant ranch, now a ghost of its former self, seemed to echo the murmurs of his neighbors, all grasping with bated breath at the harsh economic realities of rural life. The morning light poured over the horizon as Jack stood by the rustic fence, his hands rough from years of toil. He adjusted the worn brim of his hat and sighed, trying to shake off the loneliness that wrapped around him like a thick fog. It was while mending a fence, a mundane chore that tethered him to the land, that he first saw her, a small figure hidden against the desert earth. A young Apache girl named Lila, her dark hair cascading like a waterfall into the hues of the desert. She was lost, just like him, running away from a foster home that failed to understand her spirit. "Hey there," Jack said, kneeling down, trying to match her gaze. Her wide brown eyes mirrored hope and sorrow, a reflection of the past he had lost. In that moment, Jack felt a spark. Maybe Lila could bring color back into the black and white world he had been living in. As she smiled, a transformation began. Her laughter became a balm for his aching heart, reminding him that warmth still existed in the world. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Days turned into weeks, and as Jack taught Lila the ways of ranch life, he found his spirit stitching itself back together. Together they roamed the fields, chasing the wild stallions and dancing under the Arizona sun, finding solace in the rhythms of ranch life. People whispered in town, their opinions dripped with bias and suspicion. Why was Jack forming a bond with a girl whose heritage was shunned? He felt the tension rising, but the joy Lila brought him burned brighter than the harsh words. One afternoon, Lila faced bullies at school, their laughter ripping through Jack's newfound peace. He refused to let the old scars of loss dictate their narrative. But when a misunderstanding turned tragic, Lila was taken from him. Left in the vast silence of his empty ranch, Jack's heart broke anew. Walls he thought he'd begun to break down were now towering higher than ever. They'd barely begun their journey together, only for it to be severed by the weight of societal injustice. With Lila gone, Jack found a fire igniting within him. He vowed to confront the shadows that had haunted him. "I won't let this happen again," he whispered to himself, a promise lingering in the air. Drawing strength from their bond, he planned a community fundraiser to rally support for Lila and raise awareness about the injustices they faced. For the first time in a long while, he felt a sense of purpose. But would the community, woven with fear and prejudice, respond with open hearts, or push him away into the dark? As the event approached, trepidation mingled with hope, and Jack steeled himself against threats that had begun to trickle in. With Lila's future resting in the balance, Jack stood at a precipice, ready to face the demons of both his past and the present. Would he be the spark that ignited change, or was the fear of the unknown too strong? Hope hung in the air, tangled with dread, leaving Jack wondering if he had the strength to inspire compassion in a community deeply rooted in division. The day of the fundraiser dawned bright and clear, the horizon ablaze with the luminous glow of a new beginning. Jack stood by the entrance of his ranch, his heart pounding. Tables adorned with hand-painted signs and colorful banners dotted the yard, marking the space where hope could flourish. Dust danced in the air, disturbed by the wind's whispering promises of change. Neighbors began to trickle in, their faces familiar yet now laced with uncertainty. Jack could feel their eyes on him. The whispers from last week still clung around like thorns. But today was not the day for retreating into silence. Today was about standing tall for Lila. As the sun climbed higher, he took a deep breath, his throat dry from anticipation. He spotted Old Man Thompson, a neighbor who hadn't looked his way since Lila arrived. Jack's spirit quivered but steadied when he saw him approach with a reluctant smile. "I heard you're doing something for that girl," the old man said, his voice gravelly, yet with a hint of warmth. "It takes guts, son." "Thanks, Mr. Thompson. I just want to make sure she has a future," Jack replied, his voice steady. Vulnerability was still alive in his chest, but each heartfelt exchange chipped at the walls that had recently towered over him. The next few hours blended into a whirlwind of laughter, food, and community spirit. Children dashed about, their giggles filling the air with an innocence untouched by pain. Jack stood behind the grill, flipping burgers and hot dogs, and with each sizzle, he felt a faint smile lifting his lips. The ranch, once aching with solitude, was alive again. As the event unfolded, stories started to weave through the crowd like tendrils of smoke. People began sharing their memories of Lila, how her laughter could brighten the dreariest of days, how her spirit seemed to draw them closer. Jack watched as hesitation melted from his neighbors' faces, slowly replaced by compassion. Yet, with every moment of joy, the memory of Lila's absence weighed heavier on his heart. He longed for her laughter, to see her joy reflected on the faces around him. Would all this be enough? He couldn't shake the ache of uncertainty. As twilight kissed the sky, Jack took a moment to gather his courage. He climbed onto a makeshift podium, a stack of hay bales, his heart racing anew. "Thank you all for coming," he started, his voice rising above the murmur. "I know some of you have doubts. But Lila is part of our community. She deserves our support. We're all human, and we all need each other." A hush fell over the crowd as his words hung in the air. Eyes flicked back and forth, uncertainty mingling with empathy. Jack's voice grew stronger, fueled by the warmth of shared hope. "Let us show Lila that she isn't alone." With that, the crowd erupted in applause, a collective swell of understanding breaking through the chains of bias. Jack felt a rush of gratitude, their hearts were beginning to open. But just then, a figure emerged from the tree line, silhouetted against the fading light. Jack squinted, recognition unfurling in his chest as the figure stepped into the growing shadows. It was Lila. She stood there, hesitant yet hopeful, a spark igniting in her eyes as she caught sight of the community, of Lila. Jack shouted, stepping down, his heart pounding with both joy and dread. The crowd turned, gasping at the sight of her. Would she come forward? Would the darkness encircling their community retreat in her presence? Hope hung thick in the air as she hesitated at the edge. Was this the moment their journey would truly begin? Lila stood at the threshold of her old world, her heart racing as she searched the crowd before her. Jack's voice called out her name, threading through the air like a lifeline. She could see the warmth in his eyes, but also the worry, the uncertainty that mirrored her own. A soft breeze tousled her hair, and with each step forward, voices began to rise around her, coaxing her closer. Children pointed, older folks whispered, and Jack's steady gaze anchored her as she took a tentative step. The ranch was transformed, alive with laughter, hope, and a sense of belonging that felt so foreign yet so familiar. The moments of doubt that had kept her hidden for so long crumbled like dried leaves. With a shaky breath, Lila stepped into the gathering, the palpable energy surrounding her wrapping around her like a warm embrace. She could feel the weight of their stares, but this time, it didn't crush her spirit. Instead, it flooded her with courage. Jack moved toward her, his steps measured, as if he too was grappling with the magic of this moment. "Lila," he breathed again, this time softer, more intimate. The crowd fell silent, the world fading away as he reached her. "Jack," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper, yet strong enough for him to hear her heart. I didn't know if I could come back." "Look around," he motioned with a sweeping gesture. "They're here for you. For all of us." As he spoke, Lila's eyes traveled the crowd. Faces she recognized, words exchanged in brighter days, were now filled with compassion. The atmosphere had shifted. Once fraught with suspicion and uncertainty, it now pulsed with acceptance. A small girl with braids stepped forward, reaching out with a crayon-drawn card. "I made this for you, Lila. It's a rainbow. Because you're back and you bring the colors." A soft chuckle escaped Lila's lips. The innocence of the child's gesture struck a chord deep within her, igniting a flicker of warmth in her chest. Tears threatened to spill, a blend of gratitude and relief as the card was handed to her. "Thank you," she managed through the tightening in her throat. The crowd responded to the connection, smiles blooming where there had once been walls. In that moment, Lila realized she hadn't just come back to reclaim her place, she had come back to weave herself into the very fabric of this community. The laughter, the voices, the colors, they were all intertwining, creating a tapestry of healing. But just as she felt the swell of belonging, a shadow flickered across her joy, a distant reminder of the trials yet to come. She caught sight of Mrs. Henderson, her stern face carved with unresolved judgment. The woman stood apart, arms crossed, and the integrity Lila felt wavered slightly. "Jack, what if some of them still don't accept me?" she asked, a tremor breaking through her voiced thoughts. "I'll be right here," he assured, his arm brushing against hers, a promise stronger than fear. "Together, we'll face whatever comes." Lila's heart soared at his words. It was a new beginning, but shadows still loomed, whispering doubts that stirred quietly in the dark edges of her mind. The journey wouldn't end with one gesture of love. There would be trials, the kind that could either fortify or break them. In the distance, a low rumble echoed. The sky, once bathed in twilight, darkened with clouds. Suddenly, the winds shifted, a reminder that change often brought storms. "Jack," she said, a tremor in her voice, "what when the storms return?" "Then we dance in the rain," he replied, the corners of his mouth lifting, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. With that, Lila smiled back, but a flicker of doubt remained. Would dancing in the rain be enough to wash away the past? As they stood together, side by side, she realized their journey was just beginning. Would the love and forgiveness they were forging bloom under the pressure of the storms looming on the horizon? Lila didn't have time to linger on her doubts. The crowd that had once seemed so intimidating now buzzed with anticipation. As people moved around her, they greeted her with friendly smiles and open arms. Their warmth began to dissolve the remnants of her insecurities. Jack held her hand firmly, his touch igniting a sense of safety she hadn't expected to feel. Together, they ventured further into the gathering. Lila could see familiar faces from her childhood, reminiscing a past that felt very much alive around her. Larry from the general store waved enthusiastically, while Marta brought over a plate of cookies, a signature touch of her hospitality. "These are for you, Lila." Freshly baked, she beamed. "Thank you, Marta." "They look amazing," Lila replied, her voice steadying with each kindness exchanged. Each interaction felt like adding a brushstroke to her rebuilding canvas, creating a picture of acceptance and hope. Still, her gaze wandered back to Mrs. Henderson, who remained stiff and aloof. It was as if the woman served as a reminder that not everyone could be swayed easily. The tight-lipped expression on her face read 1,000 judgments, yet Lila knew she had to focus on the love that surrounded her now. "Want to go talk to her?" Jack asked, sensing her unease. Lila shook her head. "Not yet. I think I need to strengthen my roots here before facing that storm." As evening descended, lanterns lit up, casting a soft golden glow across the ranch. Laughter floated in the air like music, and children played tag, their giggles weaving through the tapestry of voices. Lila couldn't help but smile. This was home. This was where she belonged. "Let us show them we're brave," Jack said, breaking her reverie. "Dance with me?" She chuckled, surprised by his request. here. Now. Why not? This is our moment. Let us not let the clouds dictate how we celebrate. With hearts buoyed by laughter, they stepped into the small cleared area where a few had already begun to sway to a lively tune. Lila took a deep breath, the rhythm pulsing through her. As she moved to the music, she felt the fears ebb away. The community joined in, a spontaneous gathering of joy. Every step, every twirl wove threads of laughter and connection, and Lila immersed herself in the moment. Jack twirled her around, their smiles radiant against the dimming sky. But as the music played on, a thought nagged at her. This happiness felt so fragile, like glass ready to shatter. She couldn't ignore Mrs. Henderson forever. What if she launched a harsh word that could ripple through this gathering? Would it unravel all she was rebuilding? The atmosphere shifted once again, though not in a violent way. It was like everyone instinctively knew the storm was brewing, not just outside but within Lila too. Just then, a gust of wind swept through the ranch, gently reminding them all of nature's presence. Looks like the storm is coming after all, Jack observed. Maybe. But maybe it's just the right kind of change, Lila said, her voice dipped in uncertainty but tinged with hope. As the first drops of rain began to patter against the earth, the crowd paused. Yet, instead of retreating, they smiled and lifted their faces, welcoming the raindrops like a baptism of renewal. Lila stepped closer to Jack, their arms brushing against each other. What if it's not just the storm outside, but inside, too? She mused. He squeezed her hand tighter. We'll weather it together. Just keep dancing. With that, they swayed as the rain fell harder, laughter mingling with the sound of dripping droplets. But in the back of Lila's mind, the shadow of Mrs. Henderson lurked, ready to confront her. What would the storm inside bring as they danced in the rain? Would they find a way to embrace it, or would it sweep them away? Lila's heart raced as the rain cascaded around them, washing away the remnants of doubt. The droplets danced on her skin, a chorus of nature that seemed to echo her own internal struggles. She reveled in the joyous chaos, but a weight still loomed large. Her gaze flickered toward where Mrs. Henderson stood, her silhouette framed against the lanterns. Lila's stomach knotted, the tension in her chest tightening like a lasso. Are you okay? Jack asked, his voice a low murmur almost drowned out by the laughter around them. He tilted his head slightly, concern etched on his face. Yeah, just thinking, Lila replied, forcing a smile. The storm in her heart felt louder than the rain, a growing tempest of worry and fear. Would Mrs. Henderson confront her tonight? If she did, what would she say? Want to take a break? Jack suggested, sensing her unease. Let us go get some hot chocolate or something. The thought tempted her. But deep down, she knew avoiding the confrontation wouldn't make it disappear. She couldn't run from this. No, I think I need to face this, she whispered back, her voice brimming with resolve. Lila Jack started, but she placed a finger over her lips. Just stay with me, okay? She said, her eyes locking onto his. As she walked, Lila felt the cool rain mingle with the warmth of Jack's hands still clasping hers. Each step felt like a march toward an inevitable reckoning, the laughter around her fading as she drew close to Mrs. Henderson. The woman stood rigid, her arms crossed tight against her chest, a fortress of disapproval. Mrs. Henderson, Lila ventured, breaking the lively rhythm of the celebration. The older woman's gaze sharpened, but she remained silent, ready to unleash whatever disdain had bubbled inside her. I know you may have feelings about me being back, Lila continued, her voice steady despite the quickening of her pulse. But I don't want to hide anymore. I came home to find my place, to mend what has been broken between us, between all of us. Mrs. Henderson's face remained inscrutable, and Lila's heart thudded louder than the rain now drumming against the earth. You've changed, Lila, she said finally, her tone flat, devoid of warmth. That doesn't mean you can come back and expect everyone to just accept it. The words struck Lila like a cold wave. I don't expect anyone to accept anything, she replied, finding strength in her voice. I just hope for understanding. I want a chance to show you, to show everyone that I'm different. That I've worked hard to overcome my past. Silence enveloped them, the party fading to whispers around her, yet Lila's focus remained on Mrs. Henderson. The tension hung thick in the air, and as the rain continued, it felt like the storm outside mirrored the tempest in their hearts. People don't forget, Lila, Mrs. Henderson finally replied, her voice softening just a fraction. Sometimes, it's easier to hold on to anger. To be afraid of the change that comes from forgiveness. Maybe we're all more afraid than we'd like to admit, Lila admitted, her heart racing. But what if we took that leap together? This community, it's filled with love, and I want to be a part of it again. The woman's expression softened, but it was fleeting. It's not up to me, it's up to the others too. They'll have their opinions, and you'll have to understand that. The gravity of this realization hung heavy in the air. Lila felt a swirling current of hope and fear. She couldn't undo the past, but perhaps she could pave a new way forward. As laughter resumed and the music picked up again, Lila wondered if Mrs. Henderson would walk away or stay, choosing to face the uncertainties just as she had. Will you give me a chance? Lila asked, a little bolder now. There was a possibility of change, both for herself and the whole community, but uncertainty clung to the request like the rain on her skin. Mrs. Henderson glanced back toward the party, her resolve flickering for just a moment. Lila held her breath. Would this being so fragile transform into something resilient, or would the storm scatter them both? Perhaps there's hope yet, Mrs. Henderson finally murmured, her rigid stance wavering. And in that instant, Lila's heart surged with both anticipation and dread. What would unfold next? Would she find acceptance, or would the shadows of judgment loom larger than ever before? Lila's breath caught as she saw a glimmer of something in Mrs. Henderson's eyes. It was almost imperceptible, a flicker of warmth beneath layers of hurt and skepticism. For a fleeting moment, hope soared within her, but just as quickly, doubt slammed the door shut. Would Mrs. Henderson's moment of vulnerability be enough to change the course of their tangled past? Do you really think the others will see it that way? Mrs. Henderson's voice cracked, revealing a hint of uncertainty. After everything, they've known you, Lila. They remember. I do too, Lila whispered, emotion spilling over. But I'm not that person anymore. I want to prove it, not just with words, but with actions. Just give me a chance to show you. With the celebration swirling around them, Lila felt like an outsider. The laughter and chatter of her community echoed, overwhelming her senses. She squeezed Jack's hand tighter, silently asking for strength. He looked down at her, a reassuring smile breaking through the tension. I know it won't be easy, she continued, trying to keep her voice steady. But I believe we can rebuild. One step at a time. You all mean the world to me. Mrs. Henderson shifted her weight from one leg to the other, her frown deepening. The rain had slowed but was still falling steadily, and the world seemed to shrink around them. Lila's heart hammered in her chest, the anticipation turning the adrenaline in her veins to ice. I've seen too many people come back after making promises they can't keep. I don't want you to be one of them. Mrs. Henderson's eyes held a challenge, filled with a mix of fear and disbelief. Then let me show you, Lila replied, raw and vulnerable. Let me be accountable. If I slip, call me out. But I need the chance to change your mind. A long, heavy silence hung between them. Mrs. Henderson's gaze drifted back to the party once more. Voices mingled, each tone filling the cracks of uncertainty. The warmth of rekindled friendship seemed at odds with the chill of their confrontation. All right, she sighed, finally meeting Lila's gaze again, her voice softer. I'll give you that chance. But it's going to take time, and I can't promise everyone will feel the same. Relief washed over Lila like the rain cleansing the earth around her, but it was quickly tempered by the weight of Mrs. Henderson's words. I understand, she said, a sense of resolve blooming within. Every day will be a lesson. I promise I won't let you down. As she stepped back, Mrs. Henderson's stern facade seemed to crack open just a bit more. Lila, you need to know that sometimes the hardest part is forgiving ourselves, she said, her voice trembling. Just remember, love is easier said than done. Then let us work on it together, Lila replied, her heart soaring again. But before she could respond further, the sound of laughter grew louder nearby. The crowd had their eyes glued to the stage, where Ethan, the town's mayor, was preparing to give a speech. Lila. Ethan called. Come join me up here. He waved with excitement, catching her off guard. With a quick glance back at Mrs. Henderson, Lila felt the weight of the moment hang before her like a pendulum. This was her opportunity to step back into the community, to showcase the girl she hoped to be. She hesitated, caught between the past and the future. Jack nudged her gently, a supportive presence beside her. Go on. Show them who you are. Taking a deep breath, Lila stepped forward, one foot in front of the other, pushing aside her fear and steeling herself against the uncertain gazes of the townsfolk. Every heartbeat surged with a sweet blend of hope and nerves as she moved closer to the stage. In that moment, as the smells of rain-soaked earth and lively celebration enveloped her, Lila felt the promise of transformation shimmer in the air. But as she reached the stairs leading to the stage, a sudden chill shot through her. What if they didn't welcome her back? What if the shadows of her past still loomed large? The moment was ripe with possibilities. Was this the beginning of her redemption, or would the scars of the past hold her back? As she took that first step toward the stage, the thunder rumbled softly in the distance, and Lila's heart raced with both fear and excitement. What awaited her at the top of those steps could change everything, or tear it apart. As Lila ascended the first step, the weight of the past pressed heavily on her shoulders. Each movement felt monumental, a mix of anxiety and determination coursing through her. The crowd's murmuring buzzed like a swarm of bees in her ears, but above it all, she could hear Ethan's enthusiastic calls urging her forward. She reached the top of the steps and faced the crowd, her heart thumping like a drum. The glimmer of anticipation lit their eyes, but Lila noticed some expressions lingering with caution. Ghosts of her past hovered in the air, barely visible yet undeniably present. For a brief instant, she caught sight of familiar faces that had once been so close and now felt like distant echoes. Welcome, everyone. Ethan beamed, putting his arm around her shoulder with a proud grin. This is Lila, and as you all know, she's back. The crowd erupted into applause, but Lila couldn't shake off the feeling that their claps were as much about duty as they were about welcome. Thank you, she managed, her voice shaky but growing stronger with each word. I'm truly happy to be here, to see all of you again. The warmth of their applause wrapped around her, though she could feel the cold whispers of doubt that crept into her mind. Would they remember the girl she used to be, or could they see the person standing before them now? In her heart, she felt a flicker of bravery. I know I have a lot to prove, she continued, recalling Mrs. Henderson's hesitant expression. And I'm committed to showing you all that I've changed. I'm here to rebuild and learn to take every chance I get to be better. At the mention of needing to learn, she noticed some faces soften, while others looked more skeptical. A ripple of whispers turned into murmurs that wove between the crowd, creating a tapestry of mixed feelings that both thrilled and terrified her. Suddenly, her eyes landed on Mrs. Henderson at the edge of the crowd. The older woman's expression was unreadable, a stillness that radiated strength and guarded hope. Lila felt a pulse of energy flow through her, a thread of connection that urged her to push forward. I've made mistakes, Lila confessed, her voice rising above the gentle patter of rain. Times I wasn't kind or true to myself or others. But I'm trying to be better, and I hope with your support, I can prove that I'm worthy of your love and forgiveness. The silence that followed was palpable. Lila's heart raced, she scanned the crowd, searching for any indication of acceptance. Her breath hitched when she met the eyes of the town's sheriff, a man she had once looked up to as a protector. He nodded slowly, the skepticism in his gaze softening just a bit. The applause resumed, but it felt tentative, as if everyone was still assessing her sincerity. Doubt wove through her mind again, a familiar foe. What if this was just a performative moment that would lead to disappointment? Ethan stepped back and let Lila stand alone before the crowd. And suddenly, the laughter and chatter faded into the background, leaving only her heartbeat, a rhythmic reminder of her vulnerability. "Thank you for this chance," she said, nearly whispering. "I promise to work hard to earn your trust. One step at a time." As she wrapped up her speech, her voice caught the attention of her old friend, Maya, who stood at the front, tears gleaming in her eyes. For a long moment, they locked gazes, and Lila felt a heartwarming spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, things could change. But overcoming the past was one thing, mending the bonds they shared would be another battle altogether. Before Lila could step down, she felt a strange pang in her heart, an instinctive pulling further into the moment. "I'm here, not just for myself, but for all of us," she declared, gaining confidence. "Together, we can heal." Then, without warning, the skies opened, and raindrops began to fall heavier. It wasn't just water from above, it was a cleansing, washing away the doubts that hung in the air. Lila smiled, unable to contain the emerging warmth she felt. Could this truly be the start of something beautiful? Yet, as the crowd looked on, she wondered if her declaration was enough to sway the hearts of those who still held skepticism. The rain may fall, but would love rise in its place? And as thunder rolled again in the distance, Lila's heart raced, caught between hope and fear, waiting for the next shift in the winds of her life. Would the storm bring clarity or chaos? As the rain dripped from the eaves above the crowd, Lila felt a rush of energy. The silence pressed in on her, while the world blurred into a backdrop, and she stood at the very edge of her old life and knew. Every raindrop was a promise, every murmur a possibility. It surged through her, a challenge echoing deep in her bones. Maya stepped forward, brushing away her tears, and squeezed Lila's hand. "You can do this," she whispered, her voice threading through the chaos like a lifeline. There was something in Maya's eyes that grounded Lila, a fierce belief in her that ignited a spark of courage. But even in that moment of unity, a heaviness loomed. Doubts clawed at Lila's mind. Could she truly mend everything that had been broken? Would the town forgive her mistakes? As the questioning buzz in the crowd reached a peak, she took a deep breath, dismissing the faintest flicker of doubt. "I want to hear your stories too," she declared, lifting her chin a bit. "I've missed all of you. And I want to be part of this community again. We have so much to learn from each other. Together, we can uncover the beauty in our shared journey." The words hung in the air, and she dared to hope. Her heart raced as she turned to Mrs. Henderson again, hoping to see even a glimmer of connection. The older woman's lips parted as if she might speak, and Lila held her breath, waiting. "Sometimes, it takes more than words, Lila," Mrs. Henderson finally said, her voice steady like the rain itself. "It takes action and sincerity. We've all seen what you've been through, but you must prove that you truly want to change." Lila nodded, her pulse quickening at the challenge. "Then I will. I'll find ways to show all of you how sincere my intentions are. I'll prove that I can listen and learn." As she spoke, the energy in the crowd began to shift. Some faces brightened, igniting sparks of hope in others. Conversations exchanged among them danced like fireflies in the dusk, illuminating shared memories, laughter, pain, the fabric of their lives intertwined. The rain began to slow, transforming from a downpour into a gentle patter, washing over them all as if embracing the moment. Lila savored the fresh scent of damp earth and the warmth of renewed connections enveloping her. Hope surged, mixing with her determination. Ethan joined her at the forefront. "Let us face this storm together," he said, his voice strong and reassuring. Lila recognized the unyielding support in his expression. He wasn't going anywhere, and that made her heart swell. Yet, just as the moment lifted Lila higher, a distant rumble of thunder cracked through the burgeoning positivity. A new tension arose in the crowd, whispers growing more intense. The sheriff, who had once represented comfort, now stood with furrowed brows, deeply engaged in conversation with another town leader. Something was brewing beneath the surface. Suspicion. Concern. The atmosphere shifted, like the sudden chill in the air before a summer storm. Lila's thoughts raced. Was her commitment enough? She could feel all eyes on her again, their hopeful gazes clashed with the doubt simmering just beneath. That flicker of uncertainty returned, just as raw as before. With that, Lila stepped back to give space for the crowd to react, but she couldn't escape the pull of curiosity. She had to know what was stoking this concern. "What is going on?" she asked, her voice cutting through the murmurs. The crowd fell silent, all eyes now fixed on her. The sheriff turned toward her, his expression troubled. "We've received news about a possible storm warning, Lila," he said, casting a quick glance at the darkened horizon. "It might not just be rain. It could be dangerous." The tension in the crowd thickened like the clouds above them, and Lila felt the weight of uncertainty crash down again. A storm of a different sort was brewing, one Lila never anticipated. What would this mean for her chance to rebuild? As Lila's heart sank, she realized she was standing on a precipice. Would this challenge be the storm that swept away everything she was fighting for, or could it be the chance she needed to truly rise? The answer loomed, just out of reach, daring her to take a step forward into the chaos ahead. Lila's breath quickened as the sheriff put a name to her fear. A storm warning. The words hung in the air, heavy like the brooding clouds overhead. She could see the apprehension flicker across the faces in the crowd. The hopeful energy they had been nurturing just moments ago was evaporating, replaced by uncertainty and worry. Maya squeezed Lila's hand tighter. "We can't let fear take hold," she urged, her voice strong amid the rising tension. But Lila could feel the tug of anxiety, an invisible rope pulling tighter around her heart. What if the storm wasn't just weather? What if it washed away her chance to make things right? "I'll talk to them," she said, her voice trembling slightly as she stepped forward again. "If there's a storm coming, we need to prepare. As a community, we can do this together." The statement surprised her. Was she actually ready to lead? The sheriff's brow furrowed further. "It's not just about preparation," he replied, his tone a blend of concern and resolve. "We might need to evacuate certain areas. There are whispers about flooding, and I've got people trying to assess the situation." Around her, the murmurs swelled once more, anxiety swirling in the air like the gathering storm clouds. Lila looked out at the people who had once felt distant. Now they stood there, searching for courage in her. Ethan stepped up beside her, not leaving her side. "If we need to act, we should gather supplies," he suggested. "Form groups to check on the elderly. If it comes to it, we stay and weather the storm together." A ripple of agreement flowed through the crowd. Lila felt that spark of unity she had yearned for. Perhaps this was the moment she could seize, not just to prove her worth but to show the tribe the power of collaboration. "Let us do it. We'll create a plan," Lila declared, her voice rising above the murmurs. "We can set up a safe space for everyone, help those who might need electricity or assistance. We'll show that we care, that we're all in this together." As she spoke, determination washed over her. This was not just about her, but the whole town, their collective spirit. Her heart raced, and the gravity of her words hung palpably. Lila gestured for people to rally together, her energy igniting something within them. Few people began to move, organizing as she had suggested, whispering plans, and forming groups. The sheriff nodded slowly, perhaps rethinking his own doubts. "All right, Lila. If we do this, we do it right. We'll need to communicate, stay cautious." Maya's smile was bright, glistening even in the fading light of the day. Lila caught the frayed edges of fear being stitched together by their unity. It felt like a heartbeat thumping and alive, wrapping them all in something bigger than themselves. But just as she thought they might hold together, a decisive crack of thunder rolled through the sky. The gusting wind sent a chill creeping up her spine, and the dread in Lila's stomach twisted tighter. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed, and a tree nearby split, branches raining down like shattered dreams. The crowd gasped, retreating back towards safety. Panic spread quickly, and Lila fought to remain steady, her heart hammering in her chest. "Stay calm," she shouted, even as her own composure wavered. "If we work together, we can get through anything." But could they? Was she truly enough to lead them through this chaos? The sheriff turned toward her, urgency in his eyes. "We need to move. Let us go." As Lila braced against the howling wind, she felt the weight of the challenge amplify. Nothing would be the same after this, let alone her chances of redemption. What would happen when the storm passed? And would it bring the healing they all so desperately needed, or leave destruction in its wake? Every heartbeat drummed louder, drowning in the tempest that loomed ahead. The storm hit with ferocity, the wind howling like a pack of wolves. Rain lashed down around them, turning the ground to mud and chaos. Jack worked to gather supplies, keeping an eye on Lila, who remained the eye of the storm amid the chaos. He admired the way she transformed fear into direction, her resolve shining through. They worked side by side as the others sprang into action, finding one another amid the crashing noise. "Remember. Find your neighbors. Check on everyone." Lila remained steady, her voice rising above the tempest, rallying the crowd. Her faith in the sense of community fueled them, igniting a flicker of fire in the midst of the gathering storm. Jack felt a rush of admiration flood his heart. This girl had become a part of him and a part of the ranch's spirit. Together, they formed teams and moved into action. Jack, Maya, and a few others wandered through the darkness, canvassing the area. Every door they knocked on brought with it a breathless urgency. Faces peeked through windows, uncertainty mixed with relief spreading as the townsfolk clung to Lila's spirit. As he moved through the neighborhood, Jack could hear the faint whispers of his neighbors. "Have you heard about Lila?" A woman spoke, her tone rooted in curiosity. "Is she really working to make amends?" The hesitancy jammed in the words hinted that perhaps doubt bricked the walls they'd both been determined to break. Each positive interaction sparked a shift, opening the doors of possibility. Jack smiled, Lila was lighting a path for hope. But just as Jack ventured toward the last house on the block, another crack of thunder resonated through the sky, the air thick with tension and rain. The storm transformed the night into a swirling maelstrom of water and wind, and there was an unmistakable electricity in the air. Jack's heart raced, and worry spun a knot in his stomach as he turned to see Lila struggling against the wind, a determined look on her face. "Keep going, Jack. We can't stop now." She shouted through the clamor, but beyond her unyielding bravery, he could see the flicker of her fear. In that moment, Jack realized she wasn't just facing her past, she was shaping her future, alongside the community she hoped to rebuild. This was a lesson for them both. The storm was not just a physical threat. It was the turbulence of their shared journey, and facing it together was the only way to survive. "Let us get everyone to the community center," he hollered back to her, his voice booming above the roaring storm. Lila nodded, her eyes reflecting the luminous spirit that danced on her heart. "You heard him, folks. We need to keep moving." They led the charge as they pushed through the downpour. Hours passed as they worked tirelessly, helping those trapped by the fear and flooding. Jack and Lila stood side by side, strangers turned allies in their pursuit of something beautiful. Lila spoke soothing words of encouragement to each person they encountered. It was infectious. They formed a chain of trust, rallying the community under an umbrella of hope. What had begun as a night clouded by shadows transformed into a tapestry woven with light, a sense of togetherness amidst the storm. Jack felt Lila's hand clasp his, her fingers intertwining in a gesture of solidarity that sent warmth radiating through him even in the storm's icy grip. Finally, after what felt like years compressed into one night, they gathered everyone at the center, the heart of the community. As people found refuge, sharing stories and smiles, Jack felt the weight of doubt lift for Lila. As dawn broke, the storm began to diminish, giving way to a serene sunrise. Its golden hues spilled into the windows of the community center, bathing all in warm light. Lila walked around the room, her spirit updated and bright, filling an emotional void shared among her neighbors. "I am so grateful to have you all here," she began, her voice taut with raw emotion. "You all are not just my community, you're my family." The tension in the room dissipated like mist in the sun. She looked around, the faces now relaxed, filled with warmth and recognition. For the first time, Lila saw not just fear in the eyes that watched her, but hope. It was a transformation, a testament to the power of unity through adversity. And just as resilience was blossoming, Lila remembered Mrs. Henderson's cautious words from the night before. She scanned the crowd and spotted the older woman, her arms crossed yet softened by the flickering light of camaraderie. Lila felt a twist in her heart. "Mrs. Henderson," Lila called gently, her voice breaking through the haze of emotion. "I meant what I said last night. I'm here not just to forgive but to learn." The woman took a moment, her expression shifting as curious eyes turned toward her. "I see you've worked hard, Lila," she nodded, something akin to acceptance reflected in her eyes. "Yes, but at one stop here," Lila continued, her heart pounding against the newfound rhythm of connection. "I'll keep fighting to prove my commitment. We can shape a brighter future together." Applause erupted, a swell of sound that wrapped around Lila like a warm embrace. Jack felt pride wash over him, overwhelming and pure. Transformations had taken root around them. They had arrived not at the end, but at a new beginning. As memories of troubled pasts began to fade, Lila understood one crucial truth: she was no longer merely forging her own path. She had become a part of something larger, a community intertwined, where shadows of the past could no longer define them. And the storm had passed, leaving behind not just puddles, but reflections of growth, a testament to love's power. Jack joyfully squeezed Lila's hand, a moment of blissful connection amidst the flickers of laughter and hope. "You did it, Lila," he whispered. She turned to him, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "We did it." As they took in the dawn's light spilling through the center, they knew they had emerged stronger from the depths of challenges. Hope begun anew danced in the air like fireflies after a summer storm. Life would bring more storms, they knew that, but the strength they found in each other promised to be a guiding light as they journeyed into the horizons of their futures. And that hope began now, a community together, and it was beautiful. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. You need to be part of this inspiring journey. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support, it really matters. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this ending. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second. Only true fans understand the power of supporting the channel through these actions.